Namaskar to my Guri Two Shoes listeners. Today we will discuss the another modern story of a modern writer, The Ox by H. E. Bates, Herbert Ernest Bates. Today we will discuss only about H. E. Bates' works and the title of the story, The Ox. First of all, about Herbert Ernest Bates was born in 1905 and died in 1974. He was a well-known modern English novelist, short story writer of 20th century. H.E. Bates' H.E. Bates' first novel was The Two Sisters, which was published in 1926. During World War II, Bates served as a squadron leader in the Royal Air Force, and he wrote many war novels like Flying Office X, which commissioned war. And in 1944, he published Fair Stood the Wind for France. Like UGC NET exam asked us other war novels in chronological order. I have arranged those in year-wise. Like his other war novels are The Purple Plain, which was published in 1947, The Jacaranda Tree, which was published in 1949, The Scarlet Sword, which was published in 1951, and his another novels, simple novels, are The Follow Land in 1932, Love for Lydia, which was published in 1952, The Darling Birds of May in 1958, and The Distant Horns of Summer in 1970, The Triple Echo in 1970. Now come to his autobiographical volumes. The Vanished World, which he published in 1969, The Blossoming World, which he published in 1971, The World in Ripeness in 1972. He wrote many short stories like I mentioned here, The Grass God. This writing can be compared with D.H. Lawrence, Somerset Maugham, and Catherine Mansfield and American Ernest Hemingway's style. Okay, now come to the chronological order of short stories. He wrote The Woman Who Had Imagination, which was published 1934, The Flying Goat in 1939, The Beauty of the Dead in 1940. Now point that The Grace of God, regarded as novella, consists 25,000 words. Center character here is Fitzgerald and Sarah. It can come in net exam. Now come to the story which I want to discuss. The title H.E. Bates applies The Ox to the story, in which Mrs. Thurlow is given the most prominent position. An ox, as we know well, is a domestic animal which is mostly used for heavy work on farms. In addition to farm work, the ox is used as a draft animal. Example, one which is used to pull heavy loads. It is interesting to note that although it works so hard and pulls heavy loads, the animal receives no particular care from the farmer, who almost neglects it because of its docile and unassuming nature. Since it is modest by nature and makes no protest against its rough treatment, it has to bear its suffering and difficulties all alone and in a silent manner. Mrs. Thurlow, in the present story, seems to represent such qualities, so the author calls her the ox. The title is striking and doubly effective, since we generally do not call a human being an ox. When it is done so, the being must possess some qualities which are common in draught animal. The appropriateness of calling Mrs. Harlow the ox lies in the fact that she always declines the offer of a car ride and prefers to walk on foot, stating, I got my bike. In fact, she uses the bicycle not to mount on its seat and ride it but to fetch and carry various kinds of articles. And while she does so, she does not use its mechanical power but pushes it forward with the help of her own physical power. So there will be no exaggeration if she is regarded as an ox, an animal which does heavy work and pulls heavy loads. In this sense, Bess is quite justified in calling her an ox. There is clear internal proof that by the word ox the author means no other person but Mrs. Thurlow. Let us quote from the text in this context. In one place, Echibets writes, in the field she pinned up her skirt so that it stuck out behind her like a thick stiff tail, making her look like some bonny ox. In another place, while describing the face of Mrs. Thurlow, the author writes, it remained ox-like in its impassivity. The ox is a beast of burden. It carries things day and night and gets but little time for rest or relaxation. Similar is the condition with Mrs. Thurlow. She does a lot of work to keep the family up in a satisfactory way. It is true her husband earns some money by cutting hedges, but it is entirely spent on drinks. He needs some extra money to be spent on the same passion, and his wife has to supply it to him. The money that is required for the better education of her boys is also entirely supplied by her. For this, she has to scrub floors of different persons, wash others' clothes and iron them, cut cabbages, work in a poultry farm, pick potatoes and pears, and do other types of hard work in the field. She has even to work by candlelight and go on doing so still all the members of the family go to sleep. Only on the Sunday afternoon she gets some rest. But her husband come back home at 3 o'clock. She has to send her boys to the church in the evening. Thus her rest is frequently interrupted by them. Her work starts again from the evening when she has to darn socks and cuffs and jackets, sort the washing for the next day, and clean boots. Her fingers have to bear the hot stab of the iron and the frozen bite of icy sweets. She could not go to bed before 11, just as an ox gets no special care from its owner. Mrs. Thurlow also gets no appreciation for her incessant work. Her husband thinks the stealing of her hard earned and hard saved money a matter of no importance, whereas to her the money was like a huge, irrepressible section of her life, a part of herself, bone and flesh, blood and sweat. The boys, now that they have some standard to judge her, begins to despise her a little because they hate the cheapness of the candlelight by which she works just as an ox gets no gratitude from its owner. She also gets no feeling of gratefulness from her near ones. Her husband ultimately denies to have stolen her money, which mattered so much to her, and her own voice refuses to stay with her in the end. So the author's likening her with an ox is quite opposite. An, an ox, Mrs. Tharlow's work begins from early morning. Her bicycle is always loaded with grey bundles of washings, oil cans, sacks, cabbages, bundles of old newspaper, boards of wind-blown wood, and bags of chicken food. As a result, it cannot be ridden. So she always has to push it forward with her own force. The author correctly states her relationship to it was that of a beast to acre. Bates has also found certain similarity of her face and body with those an ox. So he rides, slopping along beside it. The bicycle, flat, heavy feet pounding painfully along under mud-stained skirts, her face and body ugly with lumpy angles of bones. She was like a beast of burden. Indeed, in consideration of her continuous work with hardly any appreciation from her near ones, we have little difficulty to take her as a beast of burden. And this point clearly shows that the title of the present story, The Ox, is just one. Then, what can I say about the story, The Ox? The title which the author selects for this story is a striking one. To name a human being after an animal is not something normal, yet, when an author does so, there must be ample reason behind it. Bates names Mrs. Tharlow as the ox in a clear, unambiguous manner. The main reason that leads him to name her so is her habit of doing hard work day and night in order that the members of her family, her husband, and her two growing up boys may lead a happy and comfortable life. She has also some similarity with an ox in the manner of her going and in having an angular bone structure. She has an old bicycle which she uses not for riding but for fetching and carrying diverse types of articles such as grey bundle of washing, oil cans, sacks, cabbages, bundles of old newspaper bought of windblown woods, bags of chicken food. She pushes the bicycle forward by her own strength. The author therefore correctly states that her relationship with the bicycle was that of a beast to a cart. Again he writes that with her face and body ugly with lumpy angles of bones, she looks like a beast of burden. He further likens her with an ox. When he exercised the following in the field, she pinned up her skirt so that it stuck out behind her like a thick, stiff tail, making her look like some bony ox. What makes her life tragic is that though she works day and night for the welfare of her family, she gets no appreciation from any member, neither from her husband, who steals her hard-saved money to spend on drinks, nor from her boys, who finally decide to stay away from her. In this respect, her life is like that of an ox that does so much service for its owner, but from whom it receives nothing but sheer neglect and ingratitude. We must therefore admire the author's choices of the title. Okay, thank you everyone.